Hi everyone. Not sure if you recognize this guy. His name Ray Kurzweil, one of the best futurists we have on Earth. Actually, myself, I don't really like futurists because usually they are really wrong. But Ray Kurzweil is one of the only ones who gets his stuff right again and again and again and again and again. In the 70s and 80s, he talked about what became later on the internet, but I'm not talking about the networking because that was already built by the 70s, 80s. I'm talking about what the internet is doing to us. He was then talking about mobile and about social networks. He had, of course, different words for them, but again, he's one of the guys who knows what he's talking about. He has this, actually, I guess, different way of thinking and different wires in his brain, and that's why he can really imagine what most of us cannot. That's why, by the way, Google a few years back took him to be their, I'm not sure about the title, but he's chief language something. He's in charge of everything language in Google. So when you see, it's a small example in your Gmail now that Google is trying to figure out what you're going to say and completes your sentences, whether in reply or even when you start typing and then you can scroll. I don't know if you're using it, but they are working on Google that knows how to speak, that knows how to listen, that knows how to think instead of us. And so I would really listen to this one when I think about our future. And so in one of his earliest books, he talks about the legend of how was chess invented. And the story goes something like this. So there's this Chinese engineer, and he comes to the Caesar and says, I invented this cool game. I call him, I don't know, because it's in Chinese, later to be called chess. And then he says, this is how it works, and you have this figure and that figure, and these are the rules. And then the Chinese Caesar is just, he doesn't know what to do. He loves this game so much, and he thinks it's the most brilliant game ever invented. And he tells his engineer, you know what, I'll give you whatever you want. Just choose whatever you want, whatever you need, and I'll just give it to you because I'm so happy with that. So the engineer tells him, well, all I need is rice. I'd like to have some rice. And the Caesar says, of course, how much rice would you want? Like, how much? And he said, if you could just put 1 grain on the first square, and then 2 on the next one, and then 4, and then 8, and then 16, and 32, and 64, and just double it by 2, and I'll be fine. And the Caesar says, of course, thanks. And then the Caesar's advisors go to calculate how many rice grains would he need. The Caesar finds out that it would be in the size of the biggest mountain in China, because if you know something about exponential growth, you know what happens when you double something in 2, when you multiply. So it starts really easy, but then it gets hard, and then it gets really, really fast. And if you look at it, actually, and you think about what you know from your life, the digital camera, your modem, Wi-Fi, the pixels in your mobile phone, the speed of internet next to your house from the 3G or 4G. So we have seen these things going that fast in our lifetime. And still, I think we don't really get it. Things go so fast. Only 10 years ago or 20 years ago, we were on row number 3, and then on the same things, we go to row number 4, and now to row number 5, and so on and so forth. So it comes to be something like this amount of rice grains. So the Caesar, what does he do? Can you guess? He kills the engineer, right? Because he's Chinese Caesar, so he can do whatever he wants. So he kills the poor engineer just after he learns how to play good chess. And then there's not much we can do about it, but it's just a story. What happens if our life is currently doubles itself every now and then? And you're all smart people, so you know about Moore's law, how we see a lot of things like transistors in a chip, but other things multiply themselves every 3 years. But it's much more than that. It's not just the technology, but it's our life that it's getting defined by technology and getting changed by technology. So in one of my favorite illustrations, the writer shows that we might stand here, but the next thing going to happen is kind of scary. So just to give you a small example for how to think about it. So if we take this person on the left from 1500 and get him into a time machine and then take him out of the time machine in 1750, then he'll be something like, oh, I see you changed the clothes, really nice. Oh, your wheels are a bit faster. Ooh, look at this sword, it's a little bit sharper. He'll get, impressed, and then he'll just want to stay there forever and never want to come back. But what would happen if you get a person from 1750 into a time machine and brings him 250 years, just the same, to the year 2000? Could you really imagine what would happen to him? So because we're Israelis, let's say that the time machine gets next to Israeli towers, and then the guy sees the interactive ads, he sees the towers, he sees the trains, he sees people on TVs, which for him is like a show on the theater, but they're really small, and then someone is changing them, and there's different people, and they speak different languages, and probably what would happen to him in a few hours is that he'll climb on Israeli and just throw himself to death, because that's too much to digest. So this is 250 years and 250 years. Now we're in 2019, so if I'll just take you guys just 19 years back to 2000, I bet that 98% of you guys, except the 2% of hipsters, wouldn't want to go there. It's just 19 years, but we had no Waze, no Gmail, Wi-Fi was lousy, just invented. Our homes had really slow internet. We needed to look for jobs. I can't remember how. There was no LinkedIn. Actually, I can't remember most of the things that we do, how we did it, because so much have been changed in just 19 years. So what is actually going to happen in the next 5 years or 10 years, which just half of it? How many things that we're getting used to are not even invented? If you ask Ray Kurzweil, this is going to happen so fast that we might be just before this huge line and we don't even know it. So he says weird things like in 2045, people will be able to live forever because our brains will be on the cloud. And then you think, oh, he is just this crazy guy. And then you see this article. He's like, no, 2045 is too late. I think it's going to happen in 9 years' time. So that's just the external world. At the same time, a huge change is happening in the internal world, our world, okay? My world. I'm not sure if you recognize the boat from afar. Do you know the Israeli movie it's on? Abba Ganuv, okay. Now we know who of you are old like I am. I'm 40, and I was born in the 80s, and I was raised on Abba Ganuv, of course, and that's my red hair mom, which I love a lot. I still do love her a lot. She's a great mom, and she taught me the best algorithm to be happy in my life, which is this simple algorithm. I should learn something and do the same thing until I'm in pension, and then I'll just be happy and successful. The thing is that my mom knew nothing about exponential growth or about how things are going to happen, but again, she also knew nothing about my generation and how we're thinking and what's happening when you give us good infrastructure to grow on, okay? Because my mom came to Israel when she was 5, running with her parents from the Holocaust. So they had really bad times. And then when she got here, they finally had a home and slowly started to get work and then get some good food and grow families. But I was grown with, much more food, housing, everything else. And so it happens that for me, this algorithm somehow didn't work. It wasn't enough for me. And so it's not enough for many people in this age of time, and I wouldn't say in this generation because this is crossing generations, not just that Gen Y or Gen X want to change work all the time. We are all getting bored so much faster, and we want to grow ourselves so much more than we used to be. And the reason for it is actually in psychology, if you know Maslow Pyramid. So again, when my mom and her parents were in the layers of physiological needs and safety needs, then in my generation and when I grew up, I got to be in the top one, okay? And I want to fulfill my potential, and I want to have so much more from life. And I'm not alone with this, it's most of us. So it's not just that what we see outside is different, it's what we have inside which is different. And when you mix both, you get things like this. This is the algorithm of my mom again, and this is life, okay? So in real life, if I stop learning at college time, I don't get anywhere else. I have to keep on studying all the time. I have to grow all the time. Otherwise, I won't be relevant, you know? Saying I'm not relevant or I'm afraid not to be relevant is something that we hear a lot. Not in these conferences, but in small, you know, talks with your spouse in the bedroom. So this guy is talking about the fourth industrial revolution, and he's from the World Economic Forum. It's what you might know as the Davos big meeting where we always see the presidents and the mayors and the government leaders of the whole world going to speak about peace and other things that don't really happen. They are also speaking about the future of work. And the fourth industrial revolution is what he calls our current era, where everything is changing. Again, not just technology, workforce is changing, education is fortunately start to change, the way we, globalization is changing, but also things like playing with genes, not these genes that make us, DNA, robots, AI, and so on and so forth. And their report about the future of work is really boring, so I did a favor for you and just summarized the most important things. First, they're talking about what will happen in the next 5 years. And this report, and this is why I like it, it's not about what will happen in 2045, in 2055, it's what will happen in 2022, okay? Actually 4 years left for us. And it's not futurists who give them the answers. They went and asked over 500 companies representing more than 15 million employees over the world and asked the CEOs and HR representatives, a word in English that means netsigim, about what do they think is going to happen very soon. And this is what they answered. So if you compare human machine in 2018, left side, 2022, right side. So we see that machine didn't replace man in all, but we can see the trend, okay? It will go 5 to 10 to 20% every few years. And then they say something really scary, like only 48% of jobs will be considered stable jobs. A stable job is a job that today, just like in 2022, has the same value. It means that it will have the same supply and demand of workers. It will have kind of the same salary that people will get for it, and companies will still need it just the same as they do need it today. So that's good for 48%. What happens with the rest of it? The rest of it is either in this trend or that trend. And they also, when you extrapolate from the numbers of jobs they're talking about 75 million jobs that will be displaced in just these 5 years. That's a lot, and that's actually annoying to see. Again, not asking futurists, but asking the ones who pay the salaries, okay? The good thing is that they're talking about almost double the amount of jobs that will emerge from God knows where, because technologies are just being invented. So what does it mean when I have AI in my company? Who are the workers and which jobs do they have in order to support this AI? So of course they do have a long list of the jobs that might emerge and a list of the jobs that might be displaced. We see for the first time things like lawyers in the list of jobs that will be really going down. Excuse me for that. I'm not sure there are lawyers here. But we see also interesting jobs such as globalization experts that almost any team will need, because in 5 years we'll work much more with Asia, not just with the US and Europe, and we know nothing about their culture. And for them, we are the weird ones. And then they say something about reskilling and upskilling. More than half of the employees, us, will need to reskill or upskill, getting new skills or make the skills we already have to be a bit different than what we do. And then they say, oh, what are these skills that are really needed? And if you look at number 4, you'll see technology and programming. But that's just the only one that we actually speak about. When we talk about jobs, about skills, number 4 is the one we usually see. We know that many people work in technology, whatever that means. It's a lot of jobs like most of you guys have. But what about the other skills? We don't study them at school or in uni. Most of us do not. So where should we suppose to have them? And how come they're so important? Well, they are when technology is so strong. So emotional intelligence is really important for us to be working with kids growing up today with iPad in their hands. Some of them never go down to play football with their friends, so they do have problems with emotional intelligence. And then they ask the guys from the companies, so what are you going to do about this whole big change? So number 1 was, we'll hire new people with the skills, and they didn't say, but they meant we'll let the others go. Others said, we'll just look to automate it. We don't need to hire new people, we'll just work with more AI. And then hire freelancers and whatever. Just to show you how strong this list of skills is getting these days, I want to speak about a great project by Google. Google in the last few years did a project called Oxygen. The first goal of the project was to tell the world why managers are redundant. We don't need managers, and teams will be much more autonomous, much faster, etc. without managers. Managers are just making everything slower. That was around 10 years ago, a bit more. But then in the middle of the research, they actually changed their minds and found out there's a big difference between a good manager and a bad manager, where a bad manager actually slows everything down, but a good manager, their team gets to be so much happier in work, and work is getting so much faster, and so on and so forth. And then when they try to say, what are the skills of this amazing manager? Look what's on number 1. He needs to be a good coach. That's weird, right? Needs to be a good coach for his employees or her employees. And now, again, it starts to make sense about that photo of me with my mom. Because these managers of these days, they have different employees. They have employees who want, again, to grow. They want to change. They want to fulfill their dreams and their potential at work. And so they need to listen to them. The World Economic Forum tells employees, well, don't wait until your workplace is doing anything about it. Just go and fetch the skills that you need. And he tells the workplaces, you gotta get some help and build much more reskilling and upskilling platforms for your employees, because in a few years' time, you'll have to get some of them off and hire new ones. Now, is it really happening? Do people really do this stuff? I believe yes, because I work at Jolt, and that's what we do there. We actually teach employees and from organizations like Sisense and Variant and Maccabi and Bank Leumi. They send their employees to us, and also people who come there by just their want or need, and they're studying once a week or twice a week and getting more and more and more skills at Jolt. And actually, it went really nice, so we opened the campus in London as well. And it's so amazing to see that the audience in London is so similar to us. I think it wasn't the case 10 years ago, but these days you talk with people our ages and they're just the same. They want to learn the same things to be able to be better at work. And that brings me to this guy, David Sasson. David Sasson invented the digital camera. It was back in 1975, and he got out of his lab with this huge camera, 8 pounds or 3 point something kilograms, and he told his bosses, hey guys, look what I did. He worked at Kodak. Can you guess what his bosses told them? Well, we do, actually, we get our profits from film, so could you just hide this thing, please, and never bring it back? No, I'm kidding. He did get a patent on it, but they did tell him, well, we're not going to go for it, sorry for letting you down, just because this innovation is not how we make money. Okay? And this is a story of a lot of companies. I'm not sure if you know the continued story of Kodak. In 2013, they filed, I don't know how you call it, but like to close the company. How do you call it? Chapter 11, right. Okay. So they filed the Chapter 11 and were almost closed because they had the best innovative thing in one of their employees, but they just missed it. Well, they didn't miss it. They chose not to use it, okay? And that's a story that happened so many times in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s, but it happens less these days because now companies know that the next move will be invented or could be invented by one of their teams or one of their employees. And companies these days are starting to understand that they need you guys to be much more innovative. Which brings me to this funny term, Homo Adaptus, or the Agile worker. That's how I called him for this conference. Homo Adaptus is a very snobbish name. I had to write an article for Wired, and they don't take anything less than snobbish. So let's call it Homo Adaptus from the word adaptive. Okay? So the workers of these days, they want to be and they need to be super adaptive. Because if the world is changing so fast, just as we saw that Ray Kurzweil is talking about, and if things are changing so fast, and if innovations cannot be missed but need to be adapted, it means that we need to be much more adaptive. And it's so similar to the agile thought, the agile concepts. So for you guys, it should be much easier to understand how to do it, but this time not on the software or on the procedure of developing the software, but you guys are the things that is getting to be agile. So first thing, of course, it means that we're welcoming change. But again, not a change in the software, but change in anything that has to do with us. And this is why we actually hate to welcome change, because the red dots is how we were presented change all of our life. Like, we'll change it and then everything will be better. But what we experienced is that the real way to do changes is going really down, and then sometimes things get better. So we have like this post-trauma of too many changes. But we can't hold to it because we need to be much more, again, adaptive. So just like in the agile process, we need to improve with feedback loop. I guess you all have feedback procedures with your bosses. One of the best sellers of this year was the book Radical Candor, and it's, in other words, it's like how to tell the truth to your employees in a way that will actually change their minds and make them better. And radical candor means that you're really honest to them, not just to be mean, but to help them. But also, I think you get feedback loops not just of this half-year or quarterly meetings. You can get feedback loops from your colleagues, you can get feedback loops from your boss's bosses, from every meeting actually, and you just have to be really aware of the feedback. So say that I just gave this lecture, if I on the way home will try to think what could I make better and what could I make little of, what should I make more of, and so on and so forth. Even if it's just 3 minutes, my next lecture hopefully will be better and better. Deliver frequently, another agile concept, and Kevin before me talked about speed, and I couldn't agree more. As I'm the chief product officer at Jolt, and speed is my favorite value for my employees. I would always prefer speed on perfect, but also if you think about yourselves, again, as the agile object, it means that you need to change yourselves faster. Okay? You can't say or think that you should be in 10 years the same person, just better. You need to define what is better and then try to change more and more and more frequently. The problem with that is that when you deliver software, you know that you always do it with a few new features and a few known bugs, right? Known bugs is the favorite list where you can put everything that doesn't work. But when you deliver yourself, it's really hard for us to deliver ourselves with bugs, okay? Because we're humans, not machines, at least until 2049. And deliver yourself with what we have considered as bugs is really hard mentally, okay? And that's why I think we should do it just like the first time you delivered software with bugs. Slowly, and make it faster and faster with time until you feel really good on delivering a version with a lot of bugs just because you know that the change is needed. Resilient is what you'll need to become in order to deliver fast with your bugs. And resilience is something that you acquire again by doing more and more and more and bigger changes. So say you're really shy and you don't even ever speak to your, I don't know, team's manager, or to his manager, or to his manager. Then you have to figure out, how do I become less shy? How do I do this? And I'm not gonna do here a lecture about how not to be shy, because you're all smart and there's so many answers to this these days if you just go into Google and find a good source for this. And you'll find so many ways for how to overcome my shyness. Certify the customer, right? Another concept from Agile. Now, thing here is that you have two customers. You know, like sometimes we have the customer and the client. One is the user who uses what we produce, and one is the one who pays for it. So again, here we have two customers. You have yourself as the customer, and you have to satisfy yourself. And that means that you need to figure out what you want and what are the features you'd want from yourself, and then think about a plan to how to get there. But you have one more customer to satisfy. What can you do? That's your boss or your organization. Measure progress. That's very geeky, but I really recommend workers today to do this, which is to measure progress, again, not just in the organization, but for myself. It means that first I have KPIs, and it could be, I don't know, 10 meetings that I presented this year, 20 new things that I learned over the year, whatever KPIs you want to put for yourself, and then measure if you do this. And last but not least, if we want to be adaptive, and if we want to adapt ourselves to the world that moves so fast, we need to always go and learn, and you want to be one step ahead. And you don't want to just learn to be this expert who be the only guy in the company who knows how to do this. You want to do it like in 2019. You want to learn it, and then you want to teach it to your colleagues as fast as you can. And by the time they know it, you went and you learned one more method, software, architecture, whatever, and you go and you teach them that. And then you always learn, and you learn by the best way to do this, which is by teaching and sharing. What I'm trying to say here is that we're in a new era, and it requires a new type of an employee. That's for you. If you have employees, it's the same for them. Let them be adaptive. Let them fail and get up. Let them try, and if they don't succeed, just back up them, support them. Help them make this feedback loop faster and faster and deliver frequently. Thank you for listening.